Okay.
Hello, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Once again at the Cusp of Freedom, where we'll be sharing our perspective and backgrounds on why and how we became who we are today as digital nomads. I'm your host for this podcast, Marvin, and today I have a very special friend and guest, whom I admire very, very much for taking this initiative to be on this podcast, given that she's never been on a podcast before. Without further ado, we'll start by letting her introduce herself so she can tell you what she does, where she's from, and yeah.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so first of all, thanks for having me. And one thing I'd clarify is that I'm hosting this podcast episode. It's going to be a little role switch reversal situation where I'm going to be asking the interview questions and you're going to be mostly asking, but we'll have a balance of the both. So I'll still give a little bit of information, but you're going to be the star of this show. So this is the interview of Marvin. But just a little bit of background on me. My name is Fatima. I am born and raised Torontonian. My ethnicity is Pakistani. So like my lineage and everything, my family's all from Pakistan. And yeah, I reside in Toronto. Right now, I'm actually not a digital nomad. I'm still working in a physical location in Toronto, but I had a couple months remote, which is what I'm taking advantage of right now. So I work as a BI analyst, a business intelligence analyst, and I do a lot of data warehousing, data modeling, visualization, all that kind of stuff at my job in Toronto. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me. And like Marvin said, to preface, I don't listen to podcasts much, and I also have never interviewed anyone on a podcast before, so this is going to be very much like a first rodeo kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, it's going to be fun. We're going to have fun. It's going to be a nice conversation, and then you're going to be letting loose all your deep, dark secrets that you haven't in previous episodes.
Okay, no problem. Of course, we'll dive straight into it. My name is Marvin. As you guys know, I am currently a founder, and my technical background is DevOps, full stack, test automation, and I've been a digital nomad for just about 2 years.
Okay.
I'm originally from Cameroon, as you might have heard in my introduction episode. I moved to the U.S. when I was 18. And basically how I got to become a founder is right after college, I worked as a full stack engineer at Boeing for a couple years and then worked at IBM as a DevOps for a couple years. And as I got the opportunity, when I finally got my citizenship, I decided to travel thanks to this Jewish girl I met in Panama on a quick trip. And ever since I took the trip, I realized that the people that I met were such different and amazing people, and that I wanted everyone to get their perspective, hence how we got to this podcast. And from there, I started staying at a co-living where I had the best experience and decided to develop an application so more people can have access to co-livings. And yeah, that's pretty much how I got here.
Gotcha. And so what was that turning point like? So you said you've been like a digital nomad for 2 years. And so like what would you like, do you have like a date where you'd say like, oh, as of this date afterwards or a period of time afterwards, you identified as a nomad? As a nomad?
Well, to be frank, I think that even at the moment, I'm not technically a digital nomad. For a simple fact that I think that becoming a digital nomad requires you to have complete autonomy on your location and your income. So as the term digital nomad is thrown around, as for people that have remote work to travel, I don't think that everyone that has remote work are digital nomads. I think digital nomad is a mindset, is a growth mindset, which one attaches themselves to in order to beat their best selves, which often will result in you being able to earn your location independency and your autonomy and your income independency as well.
Gotcha. Okay, and so what did that turning point look like for you? So you said that you worked at Boeing and then you worked at IBM.
IBM.
And then was it like after IBM, did you decide like after that trip to Panama, you're like, I'm quitting IBM, I'm gonna start my own entrepreneurial career and I'm gonna go hit the road?
No, I think that I used IBM as a leverage to travel and explore these ventures. And like I said, IBM was maybe the remote aspect, like the remote work aspect of things. But just like everyone else that has the opportunity to work remote, I would highly suggest everyone does use that to sort of like a cushion or a leverage to build on top of that for something that's more sustainable. So I think that turning point for me looked like me pursuing the podcast. I started the podcast while I was working at IBM, and it also looked like me. And after doing that for like 6 to 8 months, I started the business as well and the podcast while working at IBM. Before eventually I got laid off, and I did not go back to tech because I realized that getting laid off was a good thing, so that I could focus on something that I had started and was good enough for me to just finish before I returned to tech.
Yeah, no, that's great that you actually took that as an opportunity for growth rather than like being like, oh, woe to me, I lost my job and now I'm going to be stuck in that whole cycle again. Which I mean, like, it's obviously a very tough and unfortunate time when you lose your job. But like, that's also like, I strongly believe that those kind of breaks in your life, like they allow for you to kind of abandon like all the patterns and the habits that we have and be like, okay, wait, I kind of pigeonholed myself into like a certain way of living, and now you have a time to reevaluate everything and be like, hey, where do I want to go from here? What direction want I go? And so clearly you chose a direction that you had some passion for and some interest for, and like you've been working towards it for a while. So it's nice that you took that as an opportunity to grow.
I mean, I won't be surprised if you had a similar background. So how did you get here?
Well, I'm not really nomadic any which way. Like I still have a home base in Toronto, and I'm not location independent, and my job is not location independent. So I still am very much like working my 9 to 5 like at home. But it's definitely something that I know for a fact that's going to be, I'm working towards it. I'm working towards having an income that's location independent. I feel like I'm saying that word way too often, but it's something that I'm working towards. But also like, it's not something that I'm so passionate about that I would drop everything and go like buy my one-way ticket tomorrow. I'm kind of doing my little baby steps towards it and trying to see what I really care about and what type of living I'm comfortable with. So like similar to you, like I like the co-living kind of spaces. I like the co-working spaces. I like being in an environment that's not like party people, but like everyone is very rich in their personality and what they bring to the table, and everyone has a new perspective, and we're all doing the same kind of thing. We're living a pretty slow kind of life, and but we're just trying to exist as people in a different location. And so that is obviously something that I kind of look for when I think about my future and what it's going to look like. But like I mentioned, like I'm still doing still living my life in Toronto, and I'm still yeah.
I mean, it's nice to have a home base, though. I ain't gonna hold you. But why do you think you have this travel bug? When you were a kid, did you travel?
Not really. I actually, like, it wouldn't really be travel just to experience the place. It'd always be travel for a purpose. Ooh. So I have family in Pakistan. So like we did a couple trips to Pakistan, and the whole purpose of the trip was to see family, you know, like you're not really exploring the country or exploring the culture. And plus it's something more familiar to me. So it's not really any type of exploration. And then I did another family, like we would do family trips to the USA to visit our family over there in Virginia. That was something that we did a lot. Or like Montreal or Ottawa. Or like another trip we did was to Saudi Arabia to perform Umrah, which is like a type of pilgrimage for Muslim people.
Okay, so you've traveled a lot, but you basically travel a lot with your family.
Yeah, it was all family, and it was all family oriented, and it had a purpose that wasn't for exploration, right? Which is perfectly fine, because that's what you kind of need as a kid, you know? You need to establish a big sense of community, and that's what we kind of traveled for. But now growing up, I travel a lot. I think one of the things that I look for a lot in my travels is like, one is just nature. Like I travel primarily for nature. I travel primarily to terrains and stuff that I wouldn't see back home. And then I also, I don't know, I like the feeling of, how do I say this? I like the feeling of insignificance that travel gives me. Like I like going around places.
It humbles you a bit?
It humbles me a lot, and I really enjoy that. Like I like seeing things and being like, wow, like I do not play any part in this society, and it's functioning so beautifully and so harmonically without any interference. Like, and I really appreciate seeing, like, it reminds you again just how grand the world is and how small your problems are in comparison.
Wow, facts.
So I don't know, I really appreciate traveling for those two reasons.
It seems like those are reasons that you kind of developed as you traveled. But before you started traveling, what was your perception? Like, what did you expect to get out of traveling?
Well, I would say I had a biased perception of the people that do travel or are very digital nomadic or try to brand themselves that way. Just because I think, how do I say this without offending anyone? I think that traveling as a purpose, I don't really find that meaningful. Like people who like their only purpose in life is to kind of go through every single country and have a pin in every single map. Like I don't really see any benefit to that. So I sort of had that perception for a while where I'm like, this is not a competition for me. Like I'm just I just want to explore because I want to see, you know? And then so when I kind of shifted that perspective into something that I would say is like a bit more spiritual in the way that I'm trying to travel so I can just see what the world has to offer and like just remind myself of like the part that I play in this world. I feel like when I kind of had that narrative shift, then it made it so much more enjoyable for me.
When you were a kid, you said you traveled around a lot. I guess it wasn't like, you know, for you to explore or whatever, just like family oriented or whatever, right? But do you think that played a role in your curiosity? Do you think that opened your perspective a bit as a child? Like what questions did you ask yourself as a kid traveling from the US to Canada and Pakistan?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I will say that you're kind of doing the questions back to back, so don't get too comfortable with that.
Okay.
But I'm kidding. But yeah, no, that's a great question. So I'd say that that's one of the things that really kind of like hit home to me when I traveled the little that I did as a kid was just how the world worked. I don't know how to really explain that, but just when you like go to Saudi Arabia and you go to the pilgrimage and you just see like all these different tour guides and you see all this different type of infrastructure and see how they organize these like big pilgrimages, and you kind of just see like how like the gears turn in the world, like how everyone gets their income, how everyone has a place to live, how government plays a role.
You understood that early?
I mean, I don't think I'd say I understood it, but it was something that really caught my attention, which is like, oh wait, like how is everyone coexisting in this world, you know? And it was like something, and like it was so different from what I experienced in Toronto, which is just very structured. Like it's such a, it was a very, like in Toronto or like any other Western society, it's very copy and paste the way societies work. But when you go to somewhere like Saudi Arabia or Pakistan and you just see like how different those societies.
More manual?
I would say it's just different. Like it's just like, for example, like for Saudi Arabia, like tourism is a big part of their economy, right? Like that was nothing, like that wasn't something that you'd see at all in Toronto of people like trying to advertise tours or that kind of stuff,
I see.
you know?
So you noticed that.
So yeah, so just seeing how different economies worked was very interesting. And so I feel like that's kind of like, okay, like if I want to participate in this world and I want to be a contributor to this world, like how, like that was very interesting to see.
Ooh, can I, okay, I don't want to take over the...
No, okay, go for it.
Okay, so given that perspective, what did you dream of becoming as a kid, seeing like how how the economics work in different parts of the world, and you know how you would fit in the piece of the puzzle?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, well, you kind of said the word itself, but I was very interested in economics. That's like something that I've always been very passionate about. I studied it in university. I love macroeconomics, and it's like, it's a very much a way to quantify life, and I feel like that kind of gave me a lot of like perspective and peace as a kid or like as a student. I think like very broadly, I mean, I have a lot of philanthropic goals. Like I have a lot of like, I want to build a university. I want to help educate the people in my country. Like I want to help eliminate corruption any which way I can. And I also want to have like, as not trying to be pretentious, but I want to have like a footprint in the world, you know, like I want to have a meaningful impact, whether like even if it's at a small scale and I can only like change one small economy, or if it's at a much larger scale, that's what I'm working towards. But I mean, like, I just want to have an impact as much as possible on education and the way the society is working, and give everyone the chance to do the things
This was your dream? Or this was your dream as a kid?
That's my dream. It's like been my dream throughout my life, but it's not a specific profession or a specific career. Right now I'm using like, I guess like data or tech to kind of get closer to that, but there's going to be multiple different means to get closer to that, but that's just like my overall striving goal.
Sure. Wow.
Now, now I'm going to cut off that thought because now it's been too much of me talking. So now I'm going to shift it to you. So what was your first experiences traveling like when you were a kid and growing up, and how has that impacted your travel right now?
Okay, so growing up in Cameroon, not to sound cliche, but I had a pretty rough childhood. My mom moved to the US, and I was in Cameroon with my grandma, one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Cameroon, in the economic capital. When I was 4, my mom did everything she could to take me along. I was the last kid. So my first experience was from 4 to 9. I flew to the US when I was 4 and a half, maybe 5. And I flew, I think, with my elder brother. And traveling to the US, coming from that neighborhood and that struggle, I realized how easy things were in the US. And so I asked myself, why? Why is it that, back there, it's so much like, it's so much chaos and struggle. But here it's like, it's hot water, everything is like this grocery store.
Yeah.
Everything is nice.
It's shocking, yeah.
So it was a shock. And then I think that as a kid, I was also very naive. So I wanted to have a lot of fun. And I quickly forgot that, well, I didn't quickly forget, but I kind of forgot because as a kid, I became very playful. I wasn't very focused on like what I was dreaming of becoming. So, but when I was 9, because I didn't come to the U.S. the right way, my mom sent me back to Cameroon. And that's when perspective shifted a bit because I got sent back to Cameroon and I couldn't come back to the States because one, my guardians back in Cameroon didn't want me to go back to the States for whatever reasons. I didn't have a passport. I didn't have an ID card.
So you felt kind of stuck.
Yes, I was stuck in Cameroon, right? And I had no. So from my perspective, I had been to the U.S. where I felt like I was going to grow to become an NFL player. Because as a kid, I did play football. So my aspirations then was to be a professional football player. So I was like, damn, I'm not going to be a football player anymore. I was kind of funneled into this Catholic boarding school for 6 years, 7 years. And there, my perspective shifted a bit because I felt like my hopes and dreams were gone, and I had no other choice but to go through this funnel that everybody else kind of went to. So there, my perspective was pretty much, wow, if I get a chance to go back to the States, I'm gonna dream in order to make sure that kids anywhere have the opportunity to just travel or just be anywhere they choose to be comfortable in. So, I don't know, maybe that was my manifestation. A couple years when I was like 14, 15, my grandma helped me in this bit. Like basically, I had to go to the capital of the country as a teenager to basically go to the embassy, go to the hospitals to get my paperwork and stuff like that done on my own. And then when I was 17, my grandma helped me get a passport because her late husband knew somebody in the army that gave me a passport.
It's all about connections.
Yeah, it's all about connections, yeah. So once I realized that I was going back to the States, I was like, oh yeah, this is my
time to shine.
Yeah, exactly. So I went back to the States eventually. And when I got back to the States, I wanted to do the absolute, because in Cameroon, going through boarding school, I used to be very, like I said, playful, not very sharp in school. But I went to a boarding school where if you're amongst the last 5 of your class, you get flocked in front of 2,000 people. So my incentive to be top of my class was pretty high. Yeah. So yeah, when on my way back to the U.S., I was a lot smarter than when I left. So I went to college to pursue the hardest thing I could possibly do, computer engineering. Turned out not to be so hard. And then from there, my perspective was basically, if I'm going to be in the U.S., I better use the opportunity to make sure somebody else can have the opportunity to just spread their wings, because as someone or as anyone who has the potential to achieve a dream, it's a pity to not reach that dream because you're born in a certain place that you can't control or in a certain body that you can't control. So I think that my mission is to make sure that everyone has that opportunity.
No, I love that, and that's actually that's very something that I strive for as well. And it kind of reminds me, and I'm going to butcher this paraphrase, but it was something that Angelina Jolie said in one of her conferences, where I'm trying to recall it, but she said something about how there's nothing that there's nothing that made me deserve this opportunity, because I could have been someone born in one of the rice fields or one of the really poverty-stricken areas, and there's nothing that sets me different. They didn't deserve that, and I didn't deserve this.
Absolutely.
So it's even though we've been given this opportunity, and so it's really is our responsibility to make the most of it and provide it to other people who can't. This is such a blessing that we're able to just go around and buy tickets and bus tickets and explore places with no borders. And I feel that your time when you felt stuck there in Cameroon kind of really emphasized that to you. Oh wait, I want to leave and I can't leave. And that's such a mind-boggling experience where it's just how do I when you're given that freedom, you never, you're so grateful for it.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Taking a run with it.
Yeah.
You're really good at this. I know.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Such a natural. Should start a podcast.
Maybe I should just like take this whatever.
take it over.
Take the Cusp of freedom away from you.
Maybe
give me the patent rights. Yeah.
Maybe you should.
No, I'm kidding. You're doing great. But yeah, no, that's crazy. Okay, so I guess that's kind of what brought you to where you are today. And I kind of told you that I wasn't prepared, but I'm a little bit prepared because I have a couple questions I did want to ask you. So just to catch you off guard. Okay, let's take it to the cusp of freedom for a second, right? So you started this company on the road. So you're like essentially like an entrepreneur right now, right? And you're a fully nomadic entrepreneur.
Okay.
And so my question for you over there is like, what are the specific challenges you face to being an entrepreneur on the road versus a lot of other people that kind of have structured jobs or have freelance gigs and that kind of stuff versus you actually trying to create something stable in an unstable environment? Like, how does that look for you and what's your perspective on that?
Well, I think that I think that the journey doesn't begin. It didn't just start now. It started, when I went to Cameroon, what I was dreaming of becoming, every action I took since then, because it shapes your thoughts and your perception. So I think that it's easy if you have a big dream and you're not afraid to pursue this dream, and you're praying for more adversity. I don't know you're just like very open to failure and very open to experiences. I think it's easy to not feel like you're doing a lot of work because honestly, it's not even a lot of work. It's really not. I think that a lot of societies don't have a vision that helps them wake up every morning excited to pursue this thing because there's a lot of distractions. There may be a lot of trauma. A lot of people experience trauma or don't deal with their trauma, and that prevents them from focusing on their dreams or who they are.
And also false purpose. Like people think they're working towards what they want, but they actually are not. Yeah.
So there's all these different factors that can be, mitigated if you have a strong why.
So this was your strong why, creating something like with your own two hands?
Well, my strong why was, okay. So again, let me just go back how the Cusp of Freedom started. Maybe.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so I met interesting people, and I realized like these people are nomads. They can work and travel. Whether they've sold businesses, they have special skills or in-demand skills that helps them have this autonomy on their locations and a lot of income, right?
Yeah.
And I tell myself, I can see a pattern between these people. Why aren't people at home like this? Why does 2/3 of America don't have passports? Why am I in America trying to do my best when 2/3 of people are already there, they're not doing anything, right? And I come down to a conclusion that we lack perspective. And so at the Cusp of Freedom was the best way to get perspective, in my perspective, is by being independent and by traveling the world. So I think that becoming a digital nomad will help you get independence and eventually get more perspective. So at the Cusp of Freedom was started to help more people get perspective. And I don't know if I answered your question.
I think I want to kind of highlight one of the things you said where it's like you're kind of getting rid of dependencies, right? Like you're getting when you're for example, like if you're stuck at home, or not stuck at home, but if you're staying in one place and living in one place, like you're dependent on a lot of things around you for like your happiness and stuff.
Yes.
You're heavily dependent on your like direct social circle, and you can only access so many people when you're in one place, right? So it's like you're so dependent on the people that you have living with you in that community. You're dependent on your home, you're dependent on like the weather around, there's so many like things that you're dependent on that don't change often, that have like a big impact on your mood and your happiness. Versus when you're nomadic, you kind of have a bit more control over that, right? Like if you're upset with one place, it's pretty easy just to like pack up your backpack and your carry-on or whatever and just like move places,
Absolutely.
Or if like that's one thing that I feel like that gives a lot of that perspective, is getting rid of your dependencies as much as you can.
Absolutely. You hit it on the nail. So
amazing. Okay, cool. Then my second question for you is, would you ever go fully nomadic? And when I say fully nomadic, I mean like I don't know what your current situation is right now, but like having absolutely no place to go back to home. like no like apartment or release or like crashing with a friend, that kind of stuff, and not hold a citizenship to any country to avoid paying taxes, because I know that's a path a lot of people take.
Yeah, I'll answer those. Okay, so if I would ever go fully nomadic, I think that I would. Ever since I started my nomadic journey, I've been working a lot. Well, now it doesn't feel like work, but it's a lot of my time goes to work. And I haven't really gotten a chance to really explore every places I go to. Mm-hmm. So my goal is to get this thing running, or once the company runs well, I can take a year or two to go fully nomadic and like really enjoy, immerse myself. Mm-hmm. Maybe in like 2 or 3 different places. Doesn't have to be all around the world. And from there, I do want a base. I think that bases are important. I think that it's okay. Now, I think my base now maybe might be different than most people. I will not base myself in the U.S., given we already have homes in the U.S. But for where I would go to avoid taxes, is that what, or not avoid taxes, but like
getting rid of citizenship. So you want to have a U.S. citizenship, so then you have to avoid taxes.
Avoid taxes. Yeah. Okay. So my plan on that is not really to relinquish my U.S. citizenship, because I think the U.S. citizenship is the most powerful in the world when it comes to having an impact on this world. Mm-hmm. So my goal was, Panama. And I don't want to say this because I don't want you guys to come to Panama. I want you to go everywhere else but Panama. Now we're not going to ruin it.
Wait, how come? Wait, what's the point of you saying that? Oh, so it doesn't get like over traveled
and
stuff?
Yes, absolutely. Go to Colombia, go to work in Mexico or something.
That's like stereotypical peak traveler gatekeeping, But anyways, everyone go to Panama. But yeah, continue.
So Panama, there's no income tax for foreign income. And and it's easy to get residency if you have a business. So I was thinking my home base would be in Panama, and for tax benefits as well. And
are you being far away from your family that's situated in both U.S. and Cameroon? Is that something that you're concerned about? Is not having your home base someplace that's pretty far from family?
Absolutely not, because I said this off camera. I have family in Cameroon, Germany, France, and Canada, and in Cameroon they have a home. Germany, France, and Canada, they have a home. So I feel like all those are my home bases.
Okay.
I don't really consider myself to be really far. I consider myself to be location independent, but with a base. So my base is in Panama, where I can easily access or be in a time zone where I have most of my businesses, while also that's secure for corrupted reasons. Uh-huh. And also it's not that far from the US or Virginia, where I can go home to and
Okay. Cool. Okay. Well, all the power to you, and good luck on the journey to Panama. Is there any lasting burning questions that you have for me before we wrap up?
Yes. What life philosophy do you live by?
What life philosophy do I live by? I have so many. I actually have like a list on my phone of like quotes and stuff that I kind of gather over time. Admittedly, most of them are from Reddit, because I get a lot of my quotes from Reddit.
You want to think about? Yeah.
I mean, I have a couple that come to mind. My first one is, what's it called? Never evaluate your life when you're tired. And no credit to me for that comment. I read it somewhere. But essentially, it's like, never evaluate your life when you're tired. And tired can mean many things. It doesn't have to be physically tired. It can be emotionally tired, or if maybe you're just not in your peak like mood and that kind of stuff during the day or whatever, And so it's like, never evaluate your life. So if something shitty happens, if if you book a reservation at some place and it gets canceled, or it's fully booked and you have to adjust your plans and you're stuck and like all these things are happening and your emotions are a bit out of whack because things are so uncertain. Wow. Never evaluate your life, because during those moments it's so easy to be like, negative. Why am I doing this? Like, what's going on over here? Why did I move places? Blah, blah, blah. You just have to tackle that issue and like just shut every thought out. Yeah, go to bed, wake up the next morning, and then with a fresh mind, with a fresh brain, then you can start thinking clearly. Mm-hmm. So never evaluate your life when you're tired, and I use it all the time. Like, any little situation happens, like I'm always like, never evaluate your life when you're tired, because it's so easy to contemplate everything when you're not your full self, So that's one. I also just love it is what it is. Like, that's like my favorite. It's just like, any shitty thing happens, it is what it is. And then my last one's probably a bit more religious one, because I am Muslim, and I always remind myself that this life is a test. This life was not meant to be easy. This is not where I'm gonna find my fairness, my peace, and my justice. That all happens in a later life, but those are probably my top 3. Yeah, those are ones I hold closest to home. Yeah.
That's amazing, but let's not wrap this up yet.
Yeah, okay, wait, what are your life philosophies?
You had to turn this back now, really?
Yeah.
My life philosophy
I mean, like,
is,
are you surprised at this point?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. My life philosophy is basically paint your own picture, pray for adversity.
Mm-hmm. Pray for adversity.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And just love, because like love is a solution to a lot of things.
Yeah, just put love out there in the world.
Just put love out there. If you perceive something to be bad, or you perceive someone to be bad without knowing them, just like give them the best. What's it called? Best, I don't know, doubt. Or
Benefit of the doubt.
Benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
Just always put some love out there.
Yeah.
And that's my heart.
That's super true. The benefit of the doubt one is something I've been actively practicing, especially when driving, I will say. Especially when driving, because sometimes
We're in Toronto?
Oh my God, Toronto drivers can be absolutely crazy sometimes, but I always just like, you know what, benefit of the doubt. This could be like this person that I'm like want to honk my ass off at right now. Like this person could be the sweet old lady from the grocery store, you know? Like it could be like, I always try to like empathize with the person.
Yeah.
I'm like, this could be my lovely neighbor who just doesn't have the best self-awareness of when he's walking the hallways, you know? Like it's just one of those, like they could be good human beings with good intentions, but just in this situation, they're not their best self. So
what do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you see yourself?
Where do I see myself in 5 years? I see myself, I really want to start my own thing as well, like a lot of people. I want to have my own type of business and like my own company. Like it's not something like I'm not specific to a certain type of business. Like for example, like I have a sibling who started like a snow blowing business, you know, just because it was an opportunity that came up and they had this contract that was open and they're just like, oh, okay, let's just start a snow blowing business, you know?
I feel like for you have to be like passionate or something like impactful.
Yeah, it would have to be impactful, but also I'm not too concerned about being my first couple projects to be that impactful because I am very much like anything that I delve into, like I'm learning. And so like whatever I'm working on, it's gonna be an experience or like I'm gonna be learning a lot from it. But like that, like in my short term, medium term, like it's just to learn as much as possible, to talk and work with people as much as possible, so I can better understand how a business works, you know. And I currently work at a startup company as well, and so I get a lot of my insights through that as well. So I right now it's just kind of learning and trying to like have like my first few failures or whatever and see how that goes. But then actually to add on to that, my 10-year plan is where I want to be like having my most impact. Like I want to have a social impact on the world. I want to be actually giving kids opportunities to pursue education, that kind of stuff. In my head, it's really much just like things I have control over are a bit more direct to me is like Pakistan and just like providing education to kids in Pakistan because it's such a beautiful country with so much potential, like a lot of countries are. And so like what I aspire to do is just educate kids. That's like one of my things. And so in whatever way possible, whether that's like the university or if I'm a professor, that kind of stuff, like it's,
you know, you mentioned this in the beginning as well, and I wanted to ask you, but now I just got reminded to ask you. Why education? Why is that the way you decided to impact people?
I love that question, but education, I strongly believe is the #1 solution to like literally like 99% of problems in the world. Like if poor sewage systems, if like that's coming to my mind because I know Mexico has a lot of poor sewage systems and it's just something that's happening a lot. Yeah. But like if we had education, or if we had societies where the people in charge, or you're tearing up.
No,
is that
it's
actually no, I'm kidding. I just tend to talk like that. People just tend to get very teary-eyed during my podcast episodes. Nice. I'm kidding. But what's it called? Like I know, like for example, like the sewage system things. Like if people were educated, or if people knew what type of infrastructure they needed to sustain a population, we wouldn't have sewage problems. You know, if we had education, we wouldn't have wars because everyone would be educated and like would have more social perspective. You know, and they would be able to empathize easier with the other side. They'd have a more holistic approach to viewing issues rather than just having a very one-sided, this is the propaganda that I was taught in school kind of thing, you know? Like all the, like even famine, like we wouldn't be having food waste because we know how to, we know how to like attribute or direct our food supplies to places that don't need it. So I'm a very strong believer that like if we had a very educated society, like that's literally the starting point to fixing all the problems we have in this world.
I mean, okay, so I absolutely love you for saying that. I think that it's very obvious though that that's the issue, but why do you think we're not there yet?
I think there's a bunch of reasons why. One, I think that like society has only been conscious for not a long time. Like we, you know how there's like the whole like Maslow hierarchy of needs. We've been kind of at the survival point for a long time, and most of the world is still at the survival point. Yeah. So it's like people just trying to exist, just trying to live longer, just to get by, you know? But now we're kind of like getting to that higher tip, especially the Western societies, we're pretty much at that tip. And so now it's like, okay, like we are surviving, we have everything, but there's so many people lag behind. Yes. And there's a bunch of reasons why. This is not just like we got lucky and the reasons why they're lagging behind is because of Western imperialism and colonialism and all that kind of stuff, you know? So like that's a whole nother topic. And I think it's just human nature, right? There's going to be corruption everywhere. There's going to be bad people everywhere. There's going to be people taking advantage of others to bring themselves higher everywhere. And I think that's just part of the world. Like that's just something that we have to deal with. Like I said, this life is a test. It's not supposed to be perfect, but I don't think that we're ever going to really get to that utopia society. But I think we can get pretty close if we can work together, the good people, and kind of outweigh that bad. Okay. You tilted your head over there. I'm curious why you tilted your head.
No, I wanted to know if you feel like there needs to be like maybe generations of filtering before we get there.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I haven't really put too much thought into that. I just know that there's always going to be, just clinically, there's always going to be bad, right? You're always going to have psycho people. You're always going to have weird people in society, and you have to kind of figure out how the rest of us kind of deal with that. But yeah, I don't really have an answer to that, but I know that we haven't gotten there because of all this stuff going on. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Do you have hope for the future, you feel like? Would you be, like you said, of course, there's two sides of this coin, and we act on the side of which coin we are. So do you feel like eventually there'll be balance, like will be more positive, like what do you?
I love how this is becoming like a nomadic episode all the way to like we're going deep into like society and spirituality and stuff.
We'll come back to nomadic, don't worry.
Yeah. Do I have hope for that future? Honestly, I am not too sure. Like if you asked me like 4 years ago or whatever, and I'll be like, yeah, definitely so much hope, you know. But now it's like, I don't know, maybe we'll see. Like, all I know is that like I have access, or I have the ability to fix right what is beside me or what I have control over, and so I'm just going to do my due diligence and put my full effort into that. And then how the world takes that is not in my hands. So that's all I can do.
Do you think that if more people did what you're doing, then there's hope?
Absolutely.
What's the number? Can you quantify that? If there's 8 billion people?
If there's 8 billion people and there's one person with a lot of power that can do bad, he can outweigh all the good people. So like it's very much it's just everyone needs to do the most that they can, and that's all we can do is just hope and pray, you know, that it outweighs the bad. But yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, you've been very direct.
Yeah. Okay, now it's your turn to switch it up. Yeah, I'm gonna leave you the difficult stuff. I'm just here cruising.
What am I answering? Okay.
Well, so the question originally was about education. What was the thing again?
Education, like why education? Well, I chose perspective.
Yeah, so why is perspective for you that important?
I think perspective dictates your behavior, human behavior, and perspective. Because perspective are basically the goggles through which you view you view the world around you, and you can perceive things you can perceive as life happening to you or for you, and you can perceive things happening to you or for you. You know what I mean? So I think that the way you perceive the world, the way you perceive your reality, is very important. And you hit the nail
on the head. Yeah.
Yeah, nail on the head earlier when you when you said that if more people travel, then there'll be maybe less of this corruption, whatever. If there more people are educated, I think it's the same with perspective, right? If more people are traveling, have perspective, there'll be less corruption and less. So that's along those lines that I was thinking.
Yeah, no, I think both of our answers are very similar. Perspective and education. Like you don't even necessarily have to travel to get that perspective. You can get that perspective through education too. You know.
Absolutely.
So it's like they're very much two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely, which is the reason why I feel if it's very obvious and evident to us that that's the solution. Why isn't that the primary focus in society to get there so that we can develop faster, better? I don't know, whatever. Anyways, and then you mentioned that people are corrupt. And of course, so my perception, perception or perspective, whatever, is that There's hope, but like you said, I think people just need to more people need to do their part. I think AI is going to play a major role in what goes on. I think it's going to amplify what happens. I was telling Tim the other day that, AI is not necessarily bad. Technology isn't bad necessarily. It's meant to make procedures faster and like efficient. But the pilot or the users can use it for harm. For example, if I'm on social media and I use AI to automate a bunch of content that makes you click and stay on social media all day, I'm not really thinking about the impact that I have from distracting you in like the society that we live in, and how many people am I distracting? How do you quantify that? So I think that, or you can use it to produce content that helps people, gain a special skill or automate that. You know what I mean? That might be a harder thing to do, but society doesn't incentivize or tell you that it tells you that the easiest thing to do that's most profitable is to make the baitable content, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, I think we might, what I think will happen, it might be pessimistic and optimistic at the same time, is I think that as humans, we are prone to failure and we are prone to learning from our mistakes. I think as humans, we are developing a very powerful and useful tool, which we will fail to use, and then we will learn from that mistake.
That's a cool perspective. I like that. I'll give you like my little opinion on that. I think like AI, like any sort of innovation is great and beneficial for society. Like when we invented cars, like that was amazing. It made transportation so much quicker. It made economies flourish, all that kind of stuff. When the internet came about, it was incredible. Telephone systems, same kind of thing. Any innovation is great and beneficial to society. With the what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever. With the constraint that there's regulation, right? So like, for example, like if we had cars, but we didn't have traffic signals and traffic like signs and all this kind of stuff, then that would be a help. Like
that's
that would
a really
be,
good perspective.
that's like every single time you have innovation, you have to consider what can be the risks with that innovation, and you have to put regulations in place, right?
Absolutely.
So with AI, the difficult thing is like lots of regulations that you're putting in place are like ethical and moral regulations, right? So just the example that you gave right now with Instagram and like, or people like where you develop some sort of model that makes people stay on their phone for longer. Like there needs to be restriction against that, because you're kind of making these people vulnerable to something that they don't have much control over, So same with telephone systems. When like telephone systems came, I think it was incredible. Like I can call my mom and she's like in a different town, Like that's so amazing that I'm still able to maintain human connection and not be physically there. But then you have spam calls, So it's like, how do you, like there's always innovation is incredible, but innovation, like you said, like you don't really learn until it's out there, and then we learn from our mistakes. But hopefully this time we can kind of get a little bit ahead of it and put regulations in place so there's not so many mistakes to learn from.
How do you think, do you think the digital nomad trend is good for society, or no?
I think it's good to a certain extent. I don't think this, like, one thing I will say is like, I feel like people kind of advertise this as like peak life, or like this is like incredible, everyone should do it. I very much disagree with that. I don't think that this is meant for everyone. I know a lot of people at home that would suffer in this type of lifestyle. It's for a specific mindset and a specific type of person who really gains perspective by doing these things. So I think it's a fun, nice lifestyle, but I don't think it's just like vacation, right? Like it's not like this is your end all be all. Like this is like it may be temporary for some people. It may be like a 5-7 years for some people. And I think I really enjoy it, but it's not really something like I'd advertise to a lot of people. Except for the ones that I know would benefit from it, just because I know it's not for everyone. And also just things like our emission impact from traveling all this much, like taking planes and buses. Like there needs to be put way more thought on how can we still be like sustainable travelers, So that's one thing I think about a lot. And also a lot of nomads take benefit from countries that don't really have a lot of regulations around these things, and those economies suffer a lot. Like one example is like Hawaii, right? Like the U.S. did nothing really to protect Hawaii. Now Hawaii is struggling so much, and all of the natives are being forced to go to the mainland because they can't afford to live there. So I think it's a beautiful, very, very privileged life. But for me to really like be an ambassador for it, there needs to be a lot more innovation or a lot more thought put behind the sustainability of travel and just making sure that we're not actually hurting but helping the economies that we travel to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love your perspective so much.
Thanks.
Shall we wrap this up?
Yep, let's wrap it up. Any final thoughts, messages for the people who were able to stick this long into the episode? Yeah. Hi, Mom. Yeah.
My final message will be freedom in today's age is earned. Don't live a life of, like you said, I think being a digital nomad is not for everyone, but if you can, absolutely do it, because you will grow and gain a lot from it, and you will gain enough to earn your freedom and location independence. I guess that's the message for this podcast.
Okay, mine will be just remember how lucky you are, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what situation you are in, that you have your health and you have your freedom and you have family hopefully around you as well, because there's so many people right now currently struggling so heavily. So just even if it's something that you're yearning for so much is to be on the road, like just always remember to take a step back and be like, I'm so grateful that I'm even here perceiving life or being here able to enjoy whatever situation I'm in.
It's been amazing. It's been an amazing podcast. Thank you so much, Fatima, for being part of this.
Thanks for having me, Marvin.
And until next time. I think we'll do a part 2 when she's a nomad.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do a comeback. Okay, thanks for having me. Bye.